New York greeted them with a pink dawn and the roar of cars. Kelly Hart, manager at Black Tie Branding, stood at the 27th floor window and pretended to admire the view, although her thoughts slipped into the dark cracks of their marriage. "You're running away hungry again," Jason said softly, leaving the bedroom with 2 lattes. "You can't run around like that." "Today is a special day." "Special," echoed in my head. "Fifth anniversary, smooth Instagram posts, thousands of likes, and endless, 'You're the perfect couple.'" She knew how many layers of varnish were needed to hide microcracks. "Not hungry," she lied, accepting the cup. The fingers touched his hand, warm, familiar, but no longer exciting. "You said you'd be back early today?" "Exactly at 6. Dinner at Rooftop Seaview. I confirmed the reservation. Let's just be us in the evening. No calls, no reports." She nodded. The phone flashed. "Marcus V." My heart twitches and pain stabbed on the inside of my cheek. "Everything is fine. The client is seething," she said, and to add credibility, she picked up the phone. As luck would have it, the screen went dark. They exchanged routine phrases: subway, weather, shopping list, and went their separate ways. He to the elevator, she to the closet for a blazer. The door closed, and a ringing silence reigned in the apartment. The message was as short as a lash. "I can't get you out of my head after yesterday. Today, M." The office elevator, the smell of Pinot Noir, her own breath, brittle from that sudden kiss, flashed in her memory. She pushed off first. Or did he? The detail blurred, leaving only the taste of the forbidden. "I can't do it today," she wrote, erasing and retyping. "It was all a mistake. I sent the safest one." The street greeted us with the roar of taxis and the sweet smoke of roasted nuts. Kelly walked faster than usual, as if she was hoping to outpace her own thoughts. On the Fifth Avenue subway, I ran into my colleague Emma Ross, the one who always wore a smile wider than the dress code allowed. "Kel, you're shining." New tone, or someone new? "Overworked," Kelly snapped, entering the lobby. "Yesterday's brief was exhausting." "Come on, you were great, especially in the eyes of Mr. Vice President." Emma winked. "I only saw tables," Kelly retorted, clutching the strap of her bag. The open space smelled of fresh printing ink and nerves. Above the hall hung the glass office of Marcus Wilson, the captain's bridge, from which he watched the team. The screen flashed. Marcus made an appointment. 13 o'clock, urgently. The reflection in the monitor showed her dark circles under her eyes. The perfect picture was cracking. "Bad news." Emma put the cappuccino on the table. "They say the boss wants to improve your speech. A woman's talent, a man's laurels." Kelly felt her fingers tremble. "God forbid, if this is personal." She whispered and stood up abruptly. The back of the chair creaked like a nervous cord. In the corridor, the fitness bracelet twitched. Pulse 120. Run was pounding in my head, but the ambition calculator was displaying Project of the Year, Award, and somewhere nearby there was a warm, dangerous flash from yesterday's elevator. Midtown West. Jason Liddon checked the progress of construction of a new residential complex. He looked at the tower cranes and thought that marriage was also a project, a foundation of euphoria, floors of compromise, a glass facade for the public. In recent months, residents inside have complained about drafts. "Boy, you fly," his colleague Tom patted him. "Anniversary," Jason explained, but his voice did not ring with joy. "Give her something she doesn't expect. At least a cake from Magnolia." What she doesn't expect. Kelly hasn't been expecting much at all lately. He saw how she avoided dinners together, how her eyes dimmed when he shared plans for a new kitchen. 13 o'clock. The meeting room smelled of leather and expensive tobacco. Marcus stood at the window without even turning around. "Sit down. We both know this is not about presentation." Kelly remained standing. "It was a mistake," she said. "You are my leader. I love my husband. Dot. So you don't like risk." He turned slowly. "Business is based on drama. There is no story without risk. This is not a Netflix series. This is my life." He took a step closer. Think about it. Dinner on the roof at 8. If you refuse, someone else will pitch to Benton and Gold tomorrow. Step back, and the room became large again. The elevator slid down. 9, 8, 7. If you refuse, I'll find someone else. Was it blackmail or a test? Losing your dream project or the foundation of your marriage? If the foundation is cracked, should you pour new concrete? The street sparkled with shop windows. The phone vibrated. 18 o'clock, I'll pick you up. Love you. She read, love you, and felt not warmth, but light, almost weightless guilt. The glass facades reflected two New Yorks glossy and shadowy. Which one is real? A few blocks away, Jason sat in the cafeteria, sketching out directions for the evening's surprises on a napkin. 2 desserts, 1 for her. Sometimes love is the right piece of cheesecake at the right moment, he thought, and suddenly remembered Kelly's look in the morning, tense shoulders like armored plates. What if the anxiety is not about the numbers at all? He wrote the word sincerity and several arrows to it. When was the last time he asked her a question without a ready answer? The evening approaches Manhattan like a storm front, but they don't yet know whose window the first peal will hit. The March evening 8 months ago is the same one when New York smells of wet asphalt and late chances. The black tie branding headquarters had already turned off half the lights, but the meeting room on the 13th floor was still on fire. On the internal calendar, the Benton and Gold project was read with a final deadline, and the team sat in a protracted meeting. Coffee was replaced by white Sauvignon Blanc, and fatigue took the place of protocol smiles. 2 days left, Marcus Wilson slammed his hand on the glass table. We win this tender, or our quarterly bonus turns into a motivational quote. Kelly caught his eye across the laptop. The wrinkles around the boss's eyes disappeared as he became predatory. He knew how to wrap himself in words, making people believe that they were working not for him, but with him. Kelly, the latest commercial, already being finalized. She scrolled through the slide, showing the recalculated margins. You need a headline so that the numbers sound like a story. That's why you're my secret sauce, Marcus smiled. The secret sauce tickled so much that Kelly involuntarily shuddered. Emma Ross unloaded a box of sushi. Everyone reached for their chopsticks, and Marcus glanced at the thin bracelet on her wrist, a gift from her husband. Then the gesture seemed neutral. She would return to him hundreds of times later. There are no clocks in the office, but fatigue measures time more accurately than the hands. At 10:17 p.m., Emma called a break. Colleagues scattered, some to the copier, some to the phone. Kelly closed her laptop, feeling her back merge with the chair. She was careful with wine. 1 glass makes the world softer, 2 dangerous thoughts. You know how to keep your balance, Marcus' voice sounded nearby. He put the bottle back into the ice bucket, not only in numbers. He sat on the edge of the table too close. Someone has to stay sober, she smiled, but her heart sped up. I like that you say drag, he nodded. Agencies are dying from poetry, and you work with your hands. Praise was her drug, but this time the adrenaline came with a personal twist. Kelly, he lowered his voice, I've been watching you for a year. You smell like solutions that make the blood flow faster. This is an office, not a Netflix series, she chuckled. If we win Benton and Gold, I'll push for your promotion to director. You have long outgrown your current table. I'm flattered, but I'm not looking for a workaround. I'll make this work, not flirting. Marcus raised his hands. I value boundaries. Just know that I'm on your side. He left, leaving behind cologne and the feeling that the door had opened slightly into a room where she had never been before. The night dragged the meeting into endless brainstorming. At 1:34, the elevator was already running according to a special map. I have the key card. Marcus gestured to gather the group at the exit. Colleagues disappeared behind steel doors. Kelly paused, straightening the papers. When I looked up, I realized that I was alone again. Do you really think that you are not looking for a workaround? Marcus leaned against the wall. I think we need to sleep, at least on the weekend. Weakness is to pretend that you don't feel the chemistry. The elevator dinged, and they entered. On the 21st floor, the cabin jerked and stood up. Night system will restart, he said calmly. 5 minutes. He took out a small flask. To keep warm. The whiskey burned my throat. He took her empty glass, his fingers touching her wrist. 59 blows, he whispered. Do you think I have no influence? I, the woman. I'm not suggesting divorce. One kiss to prove I wasn't imagining things. She could have pressed the emergency button. Instead, I remembered my husband discussing the new kitchen, and for the first time I felt that the kitchen did not smell like electricity. She didn't stop him. A short, quiet kiss split the world into before and after. The doors opened. The technician saw only the vice president helping the manager exit. Over the next few weeks, she lived in constant contrast. Officially the team leader, unofficially the recipient of encrypted messages. Digest meeting meant meet me at the parking lot. Check the layout meant come to my office. At home, she cried on Jason's shoulder, burnt out, her husband said, pouring mint tea. The summer passed in a dozen secret meetings in anonymous bars and meeting rooms under other people's signs. Each time Kelly told herself that this was the last time, and Marcus pretended to believe it and set a new point. September brought a new project, and with it a series of late presentations. Now every touch of Marcus sent an electric shock. If you want to stop, stop, he said one day, closing the archive door. But know this, I need you no less than you need me. Are you sure this is reciprocity and not conquest? There are no victories without risk. She understood that the labyrinth of shelves was the perfect metaphor. The further you go, the more difficult it is to get out without a trace. November was just around the corner when Jason asked outright for the first time. You have changed. Did something happen? The pause hung like a heavy lattice. I'm just tired, she said. He nodded, but his eyes remained wary like a dog who has caught someone else's scent. Kelly admitted to herself for the first time. From now on, every moment they share together is fragments, and there will be blood either tomorrow or later. The flashback is over. In the present, Kelly was once again sitting in the glass meeting room. Marcus's message is open in front of her. Dinner on the roof at 8. Are you with me or against me? Another window flashed. 18 o'clock, I'll pick you up. Love you from Jason. The March Sauvignon tasted bitter on my tongue. There was less time left before the fateful choice than it took for the elevator to break down. New York stands in a fog, as if the city is devouring its own thoughts. In this haze, Kelly Hart moves between two lives as deftly as between Manhattan neighborhoods. You jumped out of bed before your alarm again, Jason mutters, turning on the light in the kitchen. Kelly squints. There is a metallic taste in her mouth. Her palms are wet. You know, the report is in Sydney. Time difference, she replies, pouring orange juice, although her stomach cries for water. Jason hands her a bowl of granola. We didn't talk seriously about the baby, Kel. I'm ready to move on. She froze, the spoon trembled. Are you sure now is the best time? The timing is never perfect, but the feeling is right. He touches her hand. I want us to become a family, a real one. Something painfully tightens inside her. She is already keeping a secret that neither he nor anyone else should know about yet. In black tie branding's sky-white office, the screens glow like aquariums. The tens smell of coffee, but Kelly catches another scent, an acute HR scandal that is about to explode. Emma Ross intercepts her at the elevator. Henry from the personnel was looking for you. They say there is an internal investigation into personal boundaries. Personal, who is it about? Emma makes theatrically innocent eyes. Ask your favorite vice president. For a moment, Kelly's heart breaks into the abyss. Screenshots, rumors, or Marcus Wilson's office, glass aquarium overlooking the Hudson. The inside smells of sandalwood and pressure. Close the door, he says without even turning around. Kelly presses the matte button. The walls turn milky. What did you hear? She asks first, trying to sound dry. Too much. He throws a folder on the table. Anonymous in HR. The vice president is abusing his powers while in a relationship with a subordinate. She inhales. I warned about the risks. We played together, he retorts, but the responsibility falls on one. He comes so close that her ribs respond with a pressed flame. Stay close and I'll get us both out, he whispers. Kelly takes a step back. I have to go to a meeting. Halfway to the door, she is overcome by a sharp attack of nausea. She can barely hold back the urge. Cold sweat pours down her back. Marcus notes. Everything is fine. Coffee on an empty stomach, she lies and leaves. The toilet is on the 14th floor. Cold water runs down my wrists. 3 days late. No coffee. Damn. From her bag, she pulls out a tiny box she bought last night from a 24-hour pharmacy just in case. After 5 minutes, the blue stripe turns into 2. It seems that time is compressed into a point. Faces flash in my head. Jason, Marcus, the HR director with a folder of complaints. Kelly lowers herself onto the toilet lid, holding the test with both hands as if it were both a jewel and a bomb. Hi, baby, she whispers accidentally. The voice sounds foreign. He catches Emma in the corridor. You're pale, says a friend. Shall we have some decaffeinated coffee? Later, Kelly tries to smile. Emma nods toward the glass meeting room where lawyer Marilyn and HR officer Henry are sitting. Consider this a casting for the role of a scapegoat. Kelly enters the hall. Her stomach cramps. Now she feels him in a new way, as a shield and as a target. Henry adjusts his glasses. We have received material that calls into question compliance with corporate ethics. Screenshots are laid out in a fan in front of her. Marcus sits across from him, fingers clasped together. He looks both guilty and contemptuous. Miss Hart, do you admit that this is your correspondence? She reads the lines where their project names are codes of desire. Each letter weighs heavily now not only on it. I confirm the messages are mine, Kelly says evenly, feeling a lump growing in her throat. Marilyn nods. According to company policy, any romance between a manager and a subordinate must be reported immediately. Since this did not happen, we will begin a formal investigation. Until its completion, both of you will step away from the Benton and Gold project. Words cut harder than a scalpel. The project is the main justification for her madness. Without him, everything will seem just betrayal. After the meeting, Kelly goes outside. The January air stings her cheeks, but she is not cold, she is burning inside. She walks along 7th Avenue, her fingers automatically holding the phone. A message comes from Jason. Booking a restaurant for Saturday, let's have an evening without work. She types, yes, erases it, types, we'll see. In the end, she sends a heart emoji and feels like a fraud. In the evening, they meet near the grocery store. Jason pulls a paper bag towards the car. Homemade pasta, your favorite Chardonnay. Let's talk at the same time. About what? I thought maybe we'd make an appointment with the family doctor. Just check and prepare. Kelly's knees are shaking. Do you really want a child? I want us in the future, he says softly, and it seems the time has come. What's holding you back? Career, project, or something else? Kelly sees her reflection in the display mirror, the shadow of a smile, heels, a paper bag with dough hidden deep in the bag. Let's talk about it after dinner, she whispers and quickly kisses him on the cheek, as if sealing the question. Night. The apartment is filled with the smell of tomato sauce and fresh basil. Jason puts on some music and they eat dinner, but Kelly barely touches her food. Nausea comes in waves. Everything is fine. A little tired, she responds. Maybe you can get checked. He touches her forehead. There is no temperature, but you are hot. Kelly pushes her plate away. It's just stress, she whispers. A lot of work, these inspectors. She is almost ready to tell, but at the last second, she swallows her words, while the secret gives her time to understand what to do. Midnight. Jason is sleeping. Kelly stands in the bathroom with the light on, scrolling through her phone. Browser queries, pregnancy 5-week symptoms, how to determine paternity after birth, legal consequences of an office romance. The screen is reflected in the mirror. One face, 2 lives. She places her hand on her stomach. a strange sensation, as if a tiny motor was beating under the skin. "Who do you belong to?" She whispers to the baby. "I have an obligation to give you the best version of myself, but I don't know who this woman is yet." In the morning, Kelly takes a taxi too late for the subway, too early for confessions. Her stomach is empty, but she tells herself to think clearly. Find a lawyer. Make an appointment with an obstetrician-gynecologist. Hold out until HR decides the fate of the project. The phone rings. Marcus. "We must meet," he says quietly. "We found more letters. This is war. I can't today." "Kelly, we're drowning. I'll throw everything into." She looks at her reflection in the taxi window, pale but determined. "In some way, things, I'm no longer drowning with you," she says with only her lips, and ends the call. In the office, she locks herself in a small meeting room and takes out the second test from the pack just to be sure. Again, 2 stripes, like a double emphasis on fate. Breathing becomes difficult. The same list is buzzing in my head, but now a 4th is added to the items. 4. Decide when to tell the truth and to whom first. A letter from HR pops up on the screen. Disciplinary interview 14:30. No later. Kelly closes her eyes. Her fists rest on the table, inside panic and crazy, unexpected joy. "I can handle it," she whispers as if she were speaking not to herself, but to a child. Dinner. Cafe across the street. Emma throws a latte decaf on the table and looks searchingly. "You're clearly not in a good mood." "It's just pressure. I heard you're facing suspension." Kelly shrugs. Sometimes a pause is the best medicine. "And what will you do if you are removed from B and G?" "I'll survive." Kelly swallows the warm foam, the vegetable smell suddenly clouding her again. "They say Jason is thinking about children," Emma throws in as if by chance. "Yes." Kelly tries to smile. "We haven't decided yet." There is a tectonic trembling inside her. It is one thing to hide a secret, another thing to hear about it from the outside. HR interview. The questions are as precise as a pin. "Do you confirm that the relationship with Mr. Wilson was voluntary?" "Yes." "Do they continue?" "No." At this moment, she herself is not sure what "continues" means. Physically, no. Emotionally, a ball. "Do you understand that you could influence the distribution of bonuses?" "Understand." At the end, she is asked to sign a temporary, voluntary leave agreement. She signs. The hand is shaking. Evening. In the elevator, Kelly holds an envelope with Marilyn's signature. The metal of the door reflects her silhouette, a slender woman in an expensive coat, inside of which a new life is emerging. The phone vibrates. "Jason, dinner is heating up. Should I wait for you?" She types, "I'll be there in 20. At the same moment, a second notice. "Marcus, urgently, give me 1 hour, otherwise everything will go to the bottom." Kelly looks at the 2 messages. The mirror surface of the elevator reflects 2 telephones, 2 realities. She puts both in her bag and takes a deep breath. "I have an hour," she whispers to herself, "but I will decide." And she presses the L button, heading home to where Jason is waiting for her with dinner, and to where every word can become a revelation. But not today. Manhattan wakes up slowly. March rain washes storefronts. Taxis glide along the mirror like asphalt. Kelly sits in a coffee shop on 34th, with a cup of mocha in front of her and an envelope from the lab empty because she never filled out the DNA test form. "Do you want to warm it up?" The barista extends his hand for the 3rd time. "No, thank you." Kelly's smile is polite, but the tension is revealed by a cramp on her cheek. The gaze falls on the phone screen, a message from the DNA Express clinic. "Your kit is active for 7 days. After the expiration date, the account will be closed." She turns off the screen. The decision not to know for the first time seems not to be a weakness, but a daring form of control. As long as there is no analysis, each of her lives remains possible. In the evening, the rain doesn't just drizzle, it seems to pour down with stubbornness, as if the city needs to wash away something important from itself. People under umbrellas flow in a stream, like leaves along a spring stream, Their faces are reflected in puddles, lost in the grayness. Jason is waiting for her at the subway exit, holding an umbrella in one hand, and in the other a transparent bag with tangerines glistening on the orange sides. He knows this has been her weakness since childhood. Especially when she is nervous, then the peel comes off the citrus fruit faster than the words from her lips, and the smell sharp, sunny helps her breathe. She comes out, her scarf is tangled, her coat is wet to the shoulders. Kelly looks as if she herself has become part of the rain, transparent, fragile, tired. "You're all wet," he grumbles, covering her with an umbrella, carefully, almost tenderly, as if covering her not only from the rain, but also from anything that might hurt her. "It's been a long day," she answers, and her voice seems to sink into the water under her feet, dissolving into the noise of the street. He is silent for a second, then, as if remembering, he leans a little closer. "I made an appointment for us to see the obstetrician on Monday. Dr. Penfield. They say she is very attentive. Great reviews." And the very second he says this, something clicks in Kelly's chest sharply, unexpectedly. A small prick, not out of fear, from awareness. Now someone else besides her sees her as a future mother. Not just a woman, not just a partner, and the mother, officially irreplaceable. "Great," she nods, trying to speak lightly, but her voice trembles a little. I wanted to propose too." He smiles like a man who suddenly found himself one step ahead, but not to win, but to lend a shoulder. They walk to the car, footsteps squelching on the sidewalk. Behind you, steam rises into the air from the hatches, warm, viscous. It swirls, like in an old noir film, where the truth is always hidden in the haze, and the heroes walk, not knowing what awaits them around the corner. "Kel," Jason says, and his voice sounds unexpectedly soft, almost a whisper, "I know work is hard right now. All this is change, fear, but let's come to an agreement. No stress, just us and the baby. Fine?" He says this not as an order or as a request, but as a quiet dream that he is afraid to frighten away. He still doesn't fully believe that this is all happening, that life can be built without fighting back from it. Kelly squeezes his hand tightly, confidently, as if she were signing a contract. The fingers are wet, but warm, and in this touch, there is agreement, trust, and something more, almost like forgiving yourself. "Just us and the baby," she repeats, and in these words, for the first time, there is not only hope, but also readiness. Don't run away, don't hide, accept. The steam is still swirling behind, the reflections of the headlights glide across the wet asphalt, and they go forward, to the car, to the house, to a new chapter, in which there is still a lot left unsaid, but the main thing is already there, we. The next morning in the office, black tie branding, it wasn't just the smell of coffee, there was a sharp, dry charge of tension in the air, as if someone had turned on a high voltage wire directly into the meeting room. The employees' fingers scribbled on the keyboard faster than usual. The whispers in the corridors sounded intermittently, as if behind every word there was a threat that all this could blow up into thin air. Marcus Wilson stormed into the office like a storm in a glass jar. His tie was crooked, his face showed sleep-deprived irritation, but the energy emanated from him was powerful, as from a person who is used to managing people, projects, situations. "HR report tomorrow." He slammed his palm on the glass partition so that the small papers shook on the tables. "I need you at the brief, Kelly. Without you, they will write off Benton and Gold to the scrap." He spoke not just with emphasis, but with the habit of being heard, with the confidence that her voice, as always, would stand next to his. But today was different. Kelly stands at her desk. The back is straight, the face is calm. Everything inside her is shaking, but outside is steel. "I'm not coming," she says evenly, without pause, without trying to soften the blow. "I'm leaving." Marcus freezes. In his eyes, there is at first misunderstanding, then slight mockery. It was as if he had stumbled upon a glass wall where there shouldn't have been one. "Are you going? On vacation?" A grin slides across his face, like a poorly hidden mockery. Kelly shakes her head, and in this movement there is not just a denial, but a finality. From the company, and from everything that's between us. The pause stretches. It was as if the room lost sound for a second. Only the hum of a copy machine somewhere in the corridor reminds us that the world goes on. Marcus throws his head back slightly, and what could be taken for offense flashes in his eyes, but is more likely wounded pride. He grins wider, with a hint of venom. Are you playing nice again, after crushing our chances? Kelly sighs, closing her eyes slightly. She's tired of being the one making excuses, tired of the words he used to mask his control, from conversations in which love was confused with excitement and honesty with naivety. Odds were the art of self-deception, she retorts calmly. I don't want to live on a powder keg anymore. Words fall into the air like drops of acid. They burn through the space between them, leaving behind only the truth. Marcus purses his lips, his hands convulsively frozen on the back of the chair. At least tell me why, he squeezes out, and now there is no anger in his voice, only confusion. He never thought that Kelly would leave not with a scandal, not with claims, but with clear, final silence. Her own secret is knocking in Kelly's chest dull heavy. Because I might be carrying your baby. The words rise in the throat, bitter, like honey and poison, but she swallows them. Not out of fear. From awareness, now it's not his. Because I need a life in which I don't hide, she whispers, without looking at him. And at this moment, the silence becomes final. A second, and he understands everything. This is not a pause. This is the point. Behind her, there is only a closed door. No threats, no requests, no bargaining. It's just a void that he can no longer step into. In the evening, she turns in her pass, signs an agreement of silence and severance pay. 14 pages, 6 electronic stamps. In the reason for dismissal column, the final entry is, personal reasons, career break. Emma catches up with her at the elevator. Tell me, is this because of Marcus? Because of me, Kelly smiles, and probably for the first time for real. I'll miss you, Emma hugs her. When you open your own agency, call me. On the -first floor, Kelly takes the DNA Express kit out of her bag and throws it into the trash can. The package slaps wetly. The sound seems to put an end to it. The apartment is immersed in the soft, warm light of a floor lamp. Its light falls on the walls like a golden veil, as if melting away the remnants of daytime fatigue. Coziness is smoldering in the kitchen. The aroma of cinnamon flows from the stove, mixed with a slight sourness of apple cider, filling the space with a feeling of comfort and peace, as if autumn itself decided to live with them. On the table are 2 mugs, from which steam rises, curling in lazy curls. Jason carefully arranges them, glances briefly at the entrance, and that's when the door opens. Kelly takes off her coat, shakes the street cold out of her hair, and seems to take off not only her clothes, but also an invisible weight from her shoulders. In her movements, one can read tension, but also determination, like a person who has gone through something important. I have news, she says. Her voice is calm, but there is an undercurrent in it. I'm listening. Jason turns to her, his face open and attentive. He already knows that this is not a trifle, but he doesn't interrupt. Kelly sits down on the chair opposite, carefully taking the mug in her palms, as if she needs something not so much to warm up as to grab onto something. Her fingers wrap around the hot ceramic as if it's the whole point right now. I left BTB. He blinks. His face reflects several emotions at once: surprise, instant tension, and a little later relief. At all? Absolutely. She nods, as if she had already said this 100 times in her mind, and now, finally, she allowed herself to say it out loud. The HR storm has become too loud. Everything is bursting at the seams. The project is falling apart. I was offered severance pay, and I agreed. For a few seconds, silence reigns in the room. Only the cider in the mugs creaks, giving off heat. Jason moves closer, placing his hands on her shoulders tentatively at first, as if asking permission, and more firmly when he feels that she is not moving away. So you chose health and a child? I'm proud of you. Kelly closes her eyes. At this moment, she does not think about the lost position, does not hear internal criticism, does not argue with herself. She simply accepts this gesture, this voice, this meaning. Her choice is read not as a retreat, but as courage. This heats up more than cider. What about your ambitions? He asks as he sits down next to her, shoulder to shoulder, as if he wants to be there in both the decision and the consequences. They won't go anywhere, she smiles, but there is a shadow in the smile like a cloud that has run into the sun. They just transform. Now I want to figure out who I am without endless deadlines and Zoom meetings. She takes a sip, hides the trembling of her tongue, in which both fear and freedom are mixed. Jason takes her hand. His palm is warm, confident, holding her tightly, like an anchor in a choppy sea of change. You are the woman of my dreams, and the mother of our child. This is already enough. Kelly's heart first contracts at these words, sharply, as if inhaling in the cold, and then lets go softly, slowly. She wants to believe him, wants to accept this formula of life. But somewhere inside, in the depths, like a drop in a cave from which an underground spring begins, a familiar whisper sounds. You're lying. You don't know whose it is. She exhales, not depressed, but rather like a person who has decided to pause between two thoughts. Let's celebrate. Without alcohol, of course, she looks at him a little slyly, as if returning to the moment. I'll order your favorite cheesecake, with lemon and poppy seeds. Just don't argue. He smiles, and his smile is like an anchor. It pulls you back to reality, where everything is possible, where the choice is made, where you can just live the evening. Night. The rain drums on the windowsill. Kelly lies on her side with her hand on her stomach. Jason sleeps, hugging her from behind, breathing evenly. Jason is the best choice, she repeats to herself like a mantra. He is kind, reliable, dreamed of a child, and forgave her for her half-confession about being confused at work. He wants to believe her. He gets up quietly and goes into the living room. On the phone, the chat with Marcus is open at the last unread. I'm ready to compensate for the loss of the bonus. Just talk to me. She types, please respect my choice. Don't write to me anymore. Clicks send and immediately blocks the contact. The window reflects her silhouette, a fragile figure, a slightly rounded belly. It also has two potentialities of truth, but it chooses the one that creates fewer wounds. It's Monday morning at a private clinic on Madison Avenue. The walls are mint color, and there are soft animations of embryos on the screen in the hall. Dr. Penfield, a woman in her late 60s with warm eyes, shakes their hands. First time pregnant, congratulations. Let's see where we are. Ultrasound gel cools the skin. The heartbeat of a tiny organism sounds fractionally in the speakers. Jason digs his fingers into the armrest, his eyes shimmering with tears. Is this him? It's too early for he or she, the doctor smiles. Heart healthy, 6 weeks and 2 days. Kelly feels the world focus on this monochrome. The beating speck is all that matters. Do you want a prenatal paternity test? Penfield delicately clarifies. It is carried out from the 10th week. Jason turns to his wife. Necessary? Fractions of seconds seem like an eternity. No, Kelly responds firmly. We trust nature. The doctor nods and makes a note. Outside in the waiting room, Jason holds up the ultrasound image to the light. Look, your nose is just like yours. Do you already know everything? Certainly. It's my calling to see the best in the future. He laughs. Shall we start choosing a name? Kelly bites her lip to keep from crying. The decision to not know becomes a sacred space where their love can breathe. The next day, Marcus signs a personal order for his early leave. The HR scandal still reaches the top. Behind the door of his office, whispers are boiling. Who leaked the correspondence? Will they find a replacement? Kelly watches from afar. She came to finish the formalities with the IT department. Hand over the laptop, erase the password. Marcus glances at her through the glass, eyes full of questions. She shakes her head softly. Nothing will happen anymore. He gives up. All. Friday night, Jason is throwing a little party. Garland lights, non-alcoholic champagne, music by John Mayer. The pianist neighbor even drops by to wish Mommy a smooth pregnancy. A toast, Jason says, raising his glass of cider, for our new chapter, because sometimes ignorance is a gift that gives you the right to dream. Kelly smiles. She knows. This toast is also addressed to her fear, but she also raises her glass for the choice of the heart, and for the fact that love is not the answer to all questions, but the courage to live with questions. Night. The apartment sleeps, covered in shadow, like a blanket carefully draped by invisible hands. Everything froze, the walls, things, the air filled with the breath of silence. The world outside seemed to recede, leaving the three of them inside a small island of peace. Kelly is standing at the window again, a thin, almost elusive figure like a sketch against a glass background. Below, neon lights tear puddles into glare and colored spots, as if someone had scattered light on wet asphalt. Red, blue, green, they tremble in the reflection, mixed with her thoughts. Rare cars float along the streets, their headlights, like comets, disappearing around the corners, not knowing that someone above is peering into this unsteady, indifferent world. She touches her stomach carefully, with trepidation, as if she were touching the secret itself. It is a gesture that contains hope, fear, love, and strength. Baby, she whispers, her voice almost merging with the night air, we won't know whether your first cage came from madness or loyalty. But we know exactly where you are going, to a world where you are loved. This is more than words. This is a spell, a confession, a vow. Behind the reflection of the window are two realities. One slowly fades away, taking with it disturbing questions. The other is born soft, still fragile, but already real. The decision not to know became the anchor, not because the truth is scary, it no longer has power, but because love is also true, and it needs soil without a doubt. It must grow in the pure to become strong. Something rustles quietly behind. Blanket, bed, human movement in half sleep. The house continues to live its nightlife. Kel, where are you? Jason's voice sounds muffled, but there is concern in it, like a man who woke up not from a sound, but from someone's absence nearby. I'm already on my way, she answers, and in her voice there is the calmness that she has been seeking for a long time. We're fine. She turns off the light in the living room. The darkness is not scary now, it is like a shelter, like a soft shell of the future. Kelly goes to them, to the man whom she chose not for his perfection, but for his presence, and to a child who does not yet know that the world can be different. But precisely because of this, he will be the way they create him, with love and without residual doubts. Saturday morning on the Upper West Side smelled of cinnamon and April pollen. Kelly sat on the warm curb next to the bike rack and watched as Oliver deftly folded his skateboard. 10-year-old fingers acted faster than her managerial brain could tell her. The boy was thin, long-legged, and wrinkled his forehead funny when he thought that same triangular curve between his eyebrows that Jason always joked about. I inherited your concentrated face. Kelly smiled and forced herself to agree every time, although she knew that her forehead was built completely differently. Mom, look, if you set an angle at 20 degrees, the center of gravity runs exactly along the axis. That's why it doesn't fall, Oliver explained, demonstrating a homemade stand made of a pencil and an eraser. An engineering genius, Kelly encouraged, tying up a ponytail that invariably fell apart after a morning run. Will you show it to Dad? Dad will say, first, protect the knees. He always says that. This always contained the gentle irritation of a child and the warm predictability of a family that the three of them had been building for 10 years, like a castle made of Lego, periodically dismantling the floors, but invariably maintaining the foundation. The Maple and Steam coffee shop down the block served as their Sunday base. Jason had already ordered Kelly's signature cinnamon cappuccino and hot cocoa for his son. It was crowded inside. The windows were fogged up from a series of to-go orders. Kelly walked in, holding the door open, and the boy slipped past and, without asking, sat down at the counter where the barista was frothing milk. He loved looking at the whirlwind of foam under the steam pipe. He said it was a mini galaxy. You have a talent for supernova, Mr. Oliver, Vorista Leo winked. It's just physics, the boy answered seriously and suddenly asked, do you know that coffee foam behaves like a non-Newtonian liquid if you knock? Darling, let's have a lecture a little later. Kelly lightly touched his shoulder. He immediately realized that he had crossed the limit of adult patience and embarrassedly adjusted his glasses. Jason looked up from his tablet and broke into a smile. Here are my weekend school graduates. Sit down, tell us who you defeated today. Oliver took a notebook from his backpack, where he kept a list of experiments for the weekend in neat block letters. His block planning delighted teachers, but frightened Kelly. In it, she sometimes saw a reflection of a completely different kind of perfectionism, high, attentive to detail, with a slight mockery of everything imperfect. The morning passed peacefully until Jason was distracted by a call from work. The new line of the residential complex was delayed. The contractor demanded to go to the site. He apologized, quickly kissed his wife, ruffled Oliver's hair, and ran out into the drizzling rain. 5 minutes and I'll be back, he managed to shout from behind the door. Kelly watched him go and suddenly felt a little dizzy, as if time had looped, and now something was going to happen in the cafe that she had not planned. Oliver, meanwhile, was building a multi-tiered tower out of sugar packets when someone's shadow lay across the table. First, Kelly saw an expensive raincoat, the color of wet asphalt, then the familiar set of shoulders and a profile that she had once known too closely. Marcus Wilson said politely, "Excuse me, Kelly?" Her cup trembled slightly. "Marcus, I would never have thought to meet you here. I'm in the city for a consultation. I came in by chance. They said it was the best flat white in the area." He took a step closer. The smile was on duty, but electric interest flashed in his eyes. "How are you doing?" He noticed the boy, and the words hung. Oliver could not be called a mirror copy, but a sharp bend in the eyebrows, the same almond-shaped eyes, and a slight tilt of the head when he examined the stranger, a gesture exactly like Marcus's. Kelly knew this. She learned not to notice, just as you don't notice the background noise in your own home. But someone else's gaze turned out to be inexorable. Oliver looked up. "Hello. Are you Mom's friend?" "A colleague from long ago," Kelly answered quickly, trying to keep her voice calm. Marcus nodded to the boy. "Nice to meet you." "Oliver," he introduced himself. "What's your name?" Mark." The man hesitated, then collected himself. "Marcus." He smiled at the child, and for Kelly this exchange of smiles was like the flash of an old camera, bright, painful, and in sepia tones. "How is your business?" Marcus asked, turning his gaze back to her. "Stable," she answered briefly. "The Hart and Co. agency has been on its feet for 7 years. You've probably heard." "I heard," he nodded. Apparently, leaving was the right decision. He said it softly, but the subtext was, "Is it correct?" Meanwhile, Oliver unwrapped the straw, measuring the angle of bend. "Mom, will you allow me to show Mr. Marr?" "Marcus, how the capillary effect works." "Another time, baby." Kelly put her hand on her son's shoulder. "It's time for us to get ready. The rain is getting stronger." "It's a pity," the boy responded sincerely. Marcus did not take his eyes off his face. His gaze was drawn like a magnet to a steel ball. He bent down slightly, as if he wanted to examine the unruly cowlick at the back of his head. Kelly knew that his mind was now buzzing with probability statistics, lost time clocks, and a quick chart of genetics. "Are you happy?" he asked unexpectedly, quietly, only for her. "Very," she answered, feeling an old wave of anxiety rising inside, but a 10-year layer of lived love confidently lay on top of it. "I have a family, everything you need." Marcus nodded. A weariness flashed in his gaze that was not there before. "Can I call? Sometimes?" "It's better not," she said just as quietly. We closed this story. "I understand," he exhaled, his eyes lingering on the boy for a moment. "Take care of him. Smart guy." Oliver raised his head. "I take care of myself, Mr. Marcus. I have a helmet and elbow pads." Marcus laughed involuntarily, and there was a hint of pride in this laugh, as if it was about something of his own. He adjusted the collar of his coat and took a step back. It was nice to see you both. Happy Saturday. He walked out, smoothly disappearing into the stream of people at the door. Kelly watched as a sheet of rain covered the glass, obliterating his figure. My heart was pounding dully, not fear, not guilt, something between relief and secret regret. Mom, was Mr. Marcus really your old friend? Colleague, she clarified, collecting her things. We once worked together. He looked at me strangely, Oliver noted. It was as if I was thinking about a problem, but without the numbers. Maybe he saw a scientist in you, she stroked his hair. You have a real laboratory mind. They walked out into the drizzling rain. The noise of the street quickly absorbed the tension. Oliver cheerfully rolled his scooter, slowing down at every puddle crater, and Kelly walked alongside and thought that the shadows of the past were like invisible grains of pollen. They fly for years until one day they land on an open window. Mom, Oliver suddenly said, can you ever find out everything if you ask enough questions? She looked at him. The boy's eyes sparkled with pure curiosity, unaware of the knives under the layer of truth. Sometimes it's important to choose what questions to ask, she answered after a pause, and make sure that you are ready to hear any answer. Oliver thought for a moment, then nodded as seriously as if he had written down an axiom. Then I'll figure out how to find out the most important things. Kelly smiled and felt a warmth quietly spreading inside her, like the same flat white that had cooled on the table but still smelled like caramel. Her decision not to know was once also a way to protect the most important thing. Now this main thing was rolling nearby on small wheels, tearing up the reflections of neon signs in the puddles living, stubborn proof that love is sometimes stronger than any probability formula. Clouds were gathering over the city, but it seemed to her that just now the sun reached out like a thin ray through the gap in the clouds and touched the two of them, the big one and the little one. Kelly breathed in the damp spring air lightly, without the previous heaviness on her chest. There was a long day ahead, full of new questions, but she carried the most important answer by the hand. Kelly woke up before the alarm, as if she had emerged from deep, cold water. The curtains shook from the early wind, shadows danced on the ceiling, and my heart was pounding so loudly that it seemed like the sound would wake up the whole house. She saw that March elevator again, the walls fogged up from their breath, the sharp taste of whiskey, Marcus's hand on the back of her head, and then a black haze of guilt, growing like an ink stain. Lego was rustling in the next room as Oliver built his morning space base, humming to himself. Over the course of 10 years, his voice had become rounder, but the childlike purity had not faded, and every sound reminded Kelly of the stakes in keeping a secret. The coffee pot clicked. Jason, as always, was up first, carefully grinding the beans and placing her cup on the heart-shaped stand. Today, he lingered over the steam, narrowing his eyes. You didn't sleep well again, he stated when Kelly entered the kitchen. Nightmares. She shrugged, pretending to tie her robe. I dreamed that I was late for the plane, she lied. The truth was monstrously closer and more indefinite than any flight. Maybe we can take a vacation, Jason suggested. We'll show Oliver, California, the ocean, the surf. You need to breathe. I need to confess, echoed somewhere inside, but she smiled. Sounds great. Let's think about the dates. He came up and put his arm around her shoulders. There was always something anchoring about the smell of his skin, a mixture of woody shampoo and the confidence that the world could be mended with hands. I love you, he said simply, and thank you for giving me such a son. Kelly pressed her lips together, fighting off the trembling. Jason noticed her eyes glaze over and softly changed the subject. By the way, have you seen my old photo album? Oliver was asked to talk about his family, and I thought of showing our early years. The paper of the album, the faces in the lens, another X-ray of truth. She nodded, I will find it. And then I remembered a specific page where she is standing in a business suit at a corporate party, and Marcus in the frame slightly, barely noticeably, touches her elbow. Never before had this gesture seemed dangerous, but now it was a red marker. On the way to work, Kelly closed her eyes in the subway car, and the world fell into another flash of the past. Marcus then whispered to her, "We are the heroes of other people's scandals, but we write our own history." Her fingers trembled from the forbidden sweetness, and "no one will know" flared up inside. Now this "no one will know" has turned into a whistle, like the wind in a rusty pipe. At noon, she opened the mailbox in the co-working lobby and saw a white envelope without stamps, just an address and a name written in calligraphy. Marcus always appreciated the details. Her fingers turned icy as she tore the edge. Inside there is one sheet, its laconic style. "Kelly, I left New York, but the thoughts of that morning in the cafe linger. I compared my childhood photos with Oliver's face 20 times. Perhaps this is self-hypnosis, but I need an answer. I'm not looking for scandal. I'm not claiming anything other than the right to understand my own life. Do you agree to take the test with me, or at least say honestly, is there a possibility?" M. No threats, just one request for the truth, and this made the paper burn my palm more than the entire threat of exposure. That evening, after Jason sat Oliver down with his geometry homework, Kelly locked herself in the bathroom, turned on the water, and reread the letter as steam enveloped the mirror. The eyes were burning. She heard Oliver in the living room arguing with his father about why the angle of the outer triangle was equal to the sum of the inner ones. That same triangular arch of the eyebrows. She wanted to shout, "Yes, he could be his son," and immediately throw yourself into your arms, begging for forgiveness. But every maybe hung like a blade over their lives, not yet fallen. And Jason. Jason smiles as he closes his son's notebook and says, "Genius, you're 10 years faster than me." There is so much happiness in these words that it seems inviolable. Flashes of memory came like a wave. The cold glass of the conference room window when Marcus first touched her hand. The hum of the elevator, the smell of sandalwood cologne. Whisper, "One step and the world is different." 2 floors down is Jason, rummaging through boxes of light fixtures for their first kitchen. She grabbed the sink. Nausea set in, as in the first weeks of pregnancy. Only now it was not a hormonal storm that caused her, but fear. At night, the moonlight divided the bedroom into 2 zones. Jason slept with his hand on her waist, and Kelly stared into the darkness, holding her breath, as if any movement would break the silence. She imagined him looking up from the DNA test. "How long have you known?" And she herself could not answer when exactly the guess turned into confidence. Maybe that morning when the kid first frowned while planning a tower of blocks. The phone blinked a new email from Marcus, without a subject. Only the first line was displayed on the screen. "I'm not asking you to ruin your happiness, I'm asking." Then the text was cut off by the preview. Kelly turned off the display as if she had touched a live wire. A siren sang outside the window. She quietly released Jason's fingers, climbed out of bed, and went down to the kitchen. There was a soft light burning in the refrigerator, a world in which there was always milk and honey. She put on a pan of warm milk, but the trembling did not go away. A flash before my eyes, Oliver in his school uniform, the teacher whispering, striking resemblance to Mr. Liddon. She smiles back, maintaining her theatrical calm. The milk boiled and ran over the edge, burning the stove. Kelly frantically wiped up the puddle and suddenly realized that she was holding the envelope over the trash can. Drop it, and the letter will disappear as if it never existed. But Marcus's words were already imprinted on the inside of his eyelids. She sighed and carefully folded the sheet back. The decision to throw it away is also a decision, but she is not ready for it yet. In the morning, Oliver hummed, "Here Comes the Sun," as he got ready for school. The song sounded self-ironic under the gray sky. Jason put on his jacket and said, "After school, I'll take Oliver to the Science Museum. Will you join?" Kelly straightened the collar of his shirt, trying to keep his hands from shaking. "I have a deadline, I'll have to catch up," she breathed. "But I'll cook dinner in the evening." "Your favorite curry." Jason noticed the shadow in her eyes and paused. "Everything is fine." She pulled a smile from the back of her composure box. "I'm just tired." "Really, everything is fine." He nodded. The trust was still strong, but not unconditional, and this struck her harder than if he had suspected. Oliver, meanwhile, was putting on his jacket and, stuffing notebooks into his backpack, asked, "Mom, today we have a lesson about heredity. Can you tell me tonight where eye color comes from?" Kelly stumbled out of the blue. She remembered how Marcus once joked, "The Laedans have only brown ones, I have brown ones with an amber ring a rarity." There was indeed a thin amber rim in Oliver's eyes, but no one but her could see the details. "Of course, I'll tell you," she squeezed out. When the door closed behind them, the house felt strangely empty. Kelly took out the letter and unfolded it again, as if she was hoping to read a different text. Marcus wants to know the truth. Her husband is preparing a trip to the ocean. Son collects evidence of non-Newtonian foam. Between these lines, her own eye disintegrated like glass upon impact. She went to the window. Manhattan rooftops, the air smells of linden trees that have not yet bloomed. If I let the test happen, the world will fall apart. But the lies already make me twitch every night. How much longer can I stand? In the mirror reflection of the glass, she saw herself 10 years ago, the one who built a career and believed that she could control the consequences of any risk. This girl smiled with self-confidence and did not know what price her future version would pay. Kelly closed her eyes and leaned her forehead against the cold glass. Marcus's voice flashed in my memory. We write our own history. But now history was no longer written with the ink of desire, but with the blood of fear. The phone blinked again. This time the message was from Jason. "I forgot to say, I found an old album. I'll show you in the evening." Panic began to boil in my chest. Photo with Marcus nearby. One guiding question is enough. She took a deep breath. Calmly. First work, then the album. And the letter. The letter will be hidden in the safe that she installed after Oliver's birth, the local Babylon of secrets. Kelly turned around, threw on her coat, and left the apartment, feeling the flashbacks tugging at her hem like a child's hands. But she walked faster, repeating in a whisper on each floor, "Today is not the time yet. Today I will keep it all together." The elevator reached the first level, the door opened, and the city swallowed her, a woman between the past, which breathed down her neck, and the future, where every glance at her son echoed with an alarming echo. What if he is his? The envelope remained in the bag, heavy as a lead pendant. She did not throw it away, did not answer, but did not forget. The decision is delayed again, like a timed bomb. Only she heard the ticking, only she, for now. Kelly leaves for rainy Italian harbor about 40 minutes ahead of work schedule, just to make it before Marcus calls. She persuaded him to meet in an abandoned art loft, which was once the site of their first joint brainstorms. Concrete columns, smelling of wet plaster and the past. In her hands, she holds a paper bag with 2 lattes, a symbol of negotiation, not intimacy. He arrives as precise as a calendar cut in rate, a formal trench coat, a phone in a leather case, and looks like a laser ruler. Kelly feels the familiar warmth of fear rising inside her. "Thank you for responding," she begins, holding out the coffee, but he leaves the glass on the windowsill without even removing the lid. "I'm giving you a chance to say no officially," Marcus says. "But if you don't confirm that the boy is mine, I'll have to look for the answer myself." Kelly bites her lip, tasting the paper from the glass. "You've already heard no. And you hear again, retreat. We'll both lose everything." "But I've already lost everything." He shows the phone screen. His LinkedIn feed shows his profile as sabbatical. Clients are whispering, colleagues are digging. So far, everything is at the level of rumors, but once they see Oliver with my face, the puzzle will come together. "His face is the face of a child," she says, harsher than she had planned. "Please, Marcus, let us live." He sighs and takes out a business card. The number is written on the back with a ballpoint pen. Lorenzo Mayer, private detective. Specialists in genetic tracing. I paid the advance. His hand trembled barely noticeably. "A week, and he will bring me a statistically significant answer without your participation." Kelly recoils as if shocked. "This is an invasion of my son's privacy." "This is an investigation of our own," he retorts. Be wiser. With your consent alone, we will stop the avalanche. Without him, I take samples quietly, a toothbrush, a hair, a glass from a cocoa bar. You know, it's possible. Kelly feels her back getting wet under her coat. This is blackmail, she whispers. It's biology, he replies calmly. And the first blow is not against you, but against the lie. Accept it. I am not the enemy of your happiness. I am the enemy of the unknown. Marcus leaves without taking a sip of his coffee. The glass remains on the concrete parapet, and the word latte on the paper sleeve dissolves in the rain. That evening, Kelly tries to maintain a routine. Oliver enthusiastically takes apart the new set of microscopic sensors that he and Jason were given as a small victory in the school hackathon. Jason rushes between the oven and his work laptop, trying to meet a technical assignment deadline. He turns on a 90s playlist, pulls down his collar, and suddenly notices that his wife hasn't memorized a single note. You don't leave the counter all evening, he jokes softly. Secret curry sauce? Or are your thoughts heavy? Both. She tries to smile. A second later, he finds an excuse. The new client is exhausting, metal traders from Chicago. He nods and returns to the sauce. The smell of coconut and lime fills the kitchen, but Kelly thinks she smells the wet concrete of that attic. In the dead of night, when the house is asleep, with the hum of the air conditioner, she sends emails to a family law lawyer, a privacy consultant, a psychotherapist. Not a single one has been sent. He keeps it in drafts, as if cocking an arrow but not releasing it. At dawn, she receives a delivery notification by courier. Marcus sent a registered letter. She closes the phone without reading. There is still silence at home, and this envelope creaks like an invisible paper splinter. On Saturday, Jason occupies the attic, sorting through old boxes for Oliver's school project, Family Stories. Above is a stack of Architectural Digest magazine. Below is an album of Polaroid prints spanning a decade and a half. He flips through the pages carelessly. The wedding in the whitewashed gazebo, their yellow brick home, Oliver's first steps, and suddenly his eye catches on a snapshot of page 43. Kelly in an elegant black dress against the backdrop of the BTB logo, next to a man with a slightly impudent smile holding a glass. In the light of the flash, he barely touches her waist. Jason squeezes the photo until the edges curl. He remembers the evening when his wife came late and said, "Corporate party until the victory." Then it seemed to him everything was right, a career. The angle of the man's head in the photo is alarmingly familiar. Two stripes of eyebrows, a characteristic jawline, a subtle amber glow in his eyes. The same glow that sometimes illuminates Oliver's iris. At the top of the card, someone's hand has written BTB Mark and Kell, launched 2015 inches in marker. It's derogatory short, but for Jason the name Mark suddenly becomes a sharp bone in the throat. He puts the album down, trying to rationalize, old friend, colleague. Then I'm tempted to look on the internet, but my wife calls from below. Wow, boys, the curry is already languishing. He tucks the photo into his sweatshirt pocket, as if he doesn't trust his own eyes. At dinner, Jason listens to Oliver enthusiastically describe experiments with centrifugal force, nods, smiles, but his gaze periodically slips to his son's face and returns to the hidden photograph. Amber ring in the iris, triangular fold between the eyebrows. He always chalked it up to personality. After putting Oliver to bed, Kelly notices a slight aloofness. Is something wrong? You have the face of an engineer whose foundation has sunk. I found old photos from your BTB days, he answers, trying to make his voice sound casual. Mark? Was he a close friend? Kelly's eyes open for a split second, enough for panic to flash in the reflection of the chandelier, but she quickly pulls herself together. Head of department. Why did you ask? I just noticed the pictures. He nods as if it doesn't mean anything, but the inner plate is already cracked. At this time, Marcus is sitting at a table at JFK Airport, near the window. His laptop is open to Lorenzo Mayer's report. Table, lines, dates, photographs, a map of the Liddon family's movements. At the bottom there is a note. It is necessary to collect a sample of the child's saliva hair. Marcus takes a plastic bag from his inside pocket. Inside is a white napkin, neatly folded. Caption: Mug hash 24 maple and steam. He closes his eyes, shakes his head. The step over the edge has already been taken. The silhouette of a boy and a light cloud of freckles on the bridge of his nose appear before his eyes. My? The question presses on your eardrums more than the roaring engines of airplanes. Sunday morning begins with Jason quietly closing the front door behind him, heading to the same coffee shop for croissants. He wants to test the randomness. Barista Leo, recognizing him, chats about football, and Jason looks for a stand with photos of regular customers, among them a card, Best Guest Marcus V, recently appeared. The faded face seems like the day before yesterday, greeting Jason in the back. At home, Jason puts the croissants on the table and asks, "You said that you had no contact with colleagues from BTB. And Marcus Wilson. Was he a top manager?" Kelly turns around, feeling frozen in motion. "I broke up with everyone when I left." "Why?" He takes out the photo. There's a micro-explosion on Kelly's face. The silence stretches out, as if someone has turned off the soundtrack of a family comedy. "Jace." She sits down on a chair. "It was a long time ago, and it doesn't matter." "Then just tell me, is there even a shadow, at least a chance that—" He does not say the word dad, instead it is a whisper, "that he is connected with our family more than in this photo?" She is choking, unable to find a direct lie, but she is not ready to reveal the truth either. Silent. And this silence is the first clap of thunder over the once cloudless sky. Jason stands up, slowly, as if gravity has changed. "We need a frank conversation, but not here and not now. I'll go for a walk, okay?" The voice is even, but the eyes are like two fragments of amber. The door closes. Kelly is left with the photograph, the curry now cold, and the pain that finally shoots through without anesthesia. The morning light had barely crept into the room, and Oliver was already tapping his fingers on the lid of the laptop, while the snail-like download pulled a strip. At school, they gave a presentation on the genetics of my family, and the boy approached the topic like a scientific quest. Photographs, dates, random facts, everything needs to be organized and proven. On the floor were scanned photographs of my grandmother, great-grandmother, and military grandfather. Above them, there are neat yellow stickers. Chin shape, iris shade, height at 15 years old. Kelly behind the door listened to him mutter, "A semi-dominant gene, but we need a second example." And her heart sank painfully. It seemed that behind the thin tree, he was already close to the truth that she was hiding in every possible way. He noticed her shadow in the doorway. "Mom, can I have a photo of my dad when he was 10? I want to show how we have the same ears." "Of course," she said. "It seems to be somewhere in a green box. I'll help you look for it." She took out the box and placed it next to the children's drawings, but her fingers trembled. On top was a photograph of Jason on the shore of the lake, his forehead painted with freckles of the sun. The child carefully looked at the features. "Dad's eyes in this photo are completely brown," he noted, "and mine are brown and amber. I wonder who this is from." Kelly felt a thin thread of air close in her throat. "Sometimes the shade changes with age," she answered quietly. "We'll also look for pictures of William's grandfather. There's a similar headband there." Oliver nodded, but the question did not disappear from his eyes, simply moved to the far corner of consciousness to return later as an unlearned term. Jason was late from work for dinner. The deliberative whirlwind delayed him. The springs of recent years have not been kind to his construction projects. Suppliers missed deadlines, and he brought home fatigue like a thin layer of cement dust. Today, stuck to this layer was a heavy, almost tangible thought that he had been spiraling for a long time. Is Oliver as much like me as he should be? He found his son sitting at the kitchen table with a magnifying glass, and around there were signs dominance and recession. The downloaded stock family tree template glared on the screen. "Dad, did you wear glasses as a child?" the boy asked without a prelude. "No, I only started after university. Jason hung up his coat, feeling that the question was just the tip of the future iceberg. And what? The biology teacher has a rule. If a sign appears earlier in the child than in the parent, look for another line. But this is probably not always the case. Biology often makes exceptions. He tried to smile. Let's watch the presentation. They leaned over the monitor. On the first slide is a family photo gallery with the captions. Jason Layden is an architect. My mother is a brand consultant. I am a future robotics engineer. Next to it is a hovering empty rectangle. Third fact for comparison. There will be a joke, Oliver said, but his voice broke. Jason noticed the tense corner of his mouth. He impulsively stroked his son's head, but his palm slowed down, as if it had fallen into the viscous air of doubt. The amber ring of the iris sparkled in the artificial light of the lamp. Once again, he caught himself thinking, I don't have that shade. And Kelly too, maybe just barely. It's strange before it seemed that this was just a unique zest of the boy. Mom, will you come and tell me about the template? Oliver shouted. But Kelly, in the living room, turned up the music louder than usual and replied, just a minute. An hour later, the whole house was plunged into partial shade. Kelly was washing the dishes, Oliver was brushing his teeth, and Jason lingered by the large mirror in the hallway. He picked up his iPhone, opened the selfie camera, and beckoned to his son. Let's experiment. Let's check if we really have the same cheekbones. Look straight ahead. Oliver stood next to him, copying his dad's pose. On the screen, two faces, one male, the other child lined up in a line of DNA pixels. Jason slowly zoomed in on the image, looking from chin to chin, from his son's brittle eyebrows to his own, and suddenly both fell silent, as if something extra had appeared in the frame. Oliver was the first to break the silence. It's funny, my oval face is a little more triangular. Yes, it's funny, Jason agreed, pressing the save button. He didn't understand why he was taking this photo. The mirror reflected them full length, and the longer he looked, the more he saw the difference that love had previously absorbed. But love does not know how to extinguish the internal geometric compass. Lines, angles, lengths. The structure of a construction draftsman requires precision. The son went into the bath, and Jason remained in front of the reflection, feeling a light metallic taste on his tongue. He pressed the photo of Marcus, still carrying it in his inside pocket, against the glass of the mirror. Under different lighting, the amber tone flared up like a sunny reflection on a copper rod. Maybe I'm making things up, he whispered out loud to himself, but the words did not find conviction. In the bedroom, Kelly was arranging pillows when he entered. The room smelled of lavender spray. She always sprayed it on the sheets to calm her nerves. The anxiety, on the contrary, became sharper when Jason carefully placed a photo of Marcus on the bedside table, between the book and the phone charger. I found it again. In my pocket, he said quietly. I can't get rid of him. Kelly sat down on the edge of the bed. Jace, we already talked. He was my boss. This is all. Was never sounds when a person suddenly appears in our coffee shop. His voice trembled. And when my son asks a question about amber eyes, which I cannot explain. She ran her hand through her hair, as if trying to smooth out her own fear. Oliver is like you in 1,000 details. You see. Probably, he sighed, pulling her closer, but I no longer know what I see and what I come up with in a panic. He hugged her, and Kelly snuggled into his chest. At that moment, a heavy load of uncertainty seemed to hang on threads. She felt how quickly his heart was beating. Part of her wanted to say everything right now, even if it hurt, but without further injury. Another part remembered Marcus's letter and desperately hoped that the detective would be wrong, that the test would be inconclusive, that the statistics would work on her side. There are too many ifs to endanger the three of them. Give me time, she whispered. We will find the answers together. I love you, Jason repeated, and it sounded like a question testing itself. The night passed with quiet footsteps along the corridor. Kelly stood up twice, checked that the entrance lock was locked, and listened to the whistling of the elevator behind the wall. Jason didn't sleep either, although he pretended to. His eyes were half open, and in the gassy twilight they reflected a dark streak of thoughts. He thought, if it turns out sooner or later, will I cope? Love is measured not by genes, but by years spent together. But every thought ran into the word deception, cold as reinforced concrete. Sunday morning filled the apartment with the smell of pancakes as Kelly tried to return to her old routine. Oliver, twirling a grinning strawberry in his hands, started the topic again. Dad, did you have the same thick bangs as a child? The teacher said that hair thickness is often passed down through the maternal line, but mine is clearly not my mother's texture. Jason found himself searching for an answer longer than necessary. I started to have wavy ones later. You know, genetics is a complicated lottery. I want to dig everything up. The boy laughed, but his gaze was inquisitive to the point of fearlessness. Jason nodded. And he'll dig it up, he thought. He suddenly became afraid, not for the truth, but for the day when Oliver himself would grow so much that he would come with a ready-made formula in which the variables would no longer be hidden. He lifted the plate to the sink, and their double reflection appeared in the mirror panel of the hood again. A tall man, a thin boy next to him. The silence between them for a moment became chesty, palpable, like the hum of a subway underfoot. Oliver looked up. Dad, is everything okay? That's how you look. It's okay, baby. Jason forced his lips to soften. I just admire how quickly you are growing. Oliver shrugged and returned to his presentation, but as he left, he ran his finger along the smooth surface of the hood, leaving a thin trail of dust. His own reflection wavered and disappeared at the angle of the light. Jason looked at the clean line and suddenly felt that it looked like a line separating before and after. No one has stepped over it yet, but the line has already been drawn. 3 hours later, an email from an unfamiliar domain landed in their inbox. The preview showed only the topic, Genetic Report Confidential. Kelly managed to be the first to open the application. Her hands were shaking so much that the sensor could not distinguish touches. The document was password protected, and at the bottom was the signature Mayor and Partners. She closed the screen abruptly, her heart pounding. At that moment, Jason stepped out of the shower, drying his hair with a towel. Kel, you've turned pale. She raised her eyes, which reflected 1,000 mirrors, the same mirrors from which their story began. An icy current ran down my spine, from a son asking questions about heredity, to a husband looking for proof in his face, to a letter that could tear them apart or give them relief. There is a result ahead that will change everything. But now, in this pause, until the document was opened, the three of them stood in the mirror. He, she, and an invisible question mark between them. And the silence rang so loudly that it drowned out the sound of the dripping in the bathroom and the clicking of the mouse on his son's laptop. Thus ends a day that did not give answers, but showed how fragile each line of similarity is and how much a silent mirror can say if you really look closely. Marcus sat in a dimly lit office in a private laboratory. On the table lay a transparent bag with a child's paper cup, a brown cocoa stain, a lip print. Are you sure the sample is clean? The laboratory assistant clarified. The boy drank it for 5 minutes. Marcus answered dryly, that's enough. 3 days later, the result came. The probability of paternity is 99.78%. The numbers sparkled like a knife. Wednesday evening, Kelly managed to cook the creamy soup when the phone lit up with an unfamiliar number. There are only 6 words in the SM's body. Either you talk or I do. Below it is attached a PDF, the same table, laboratory seal. She cracked inside, like a glass lattice, and burned with a single thought. End of the postponed tomorrow. Mom, why are you pale? Oliver stood on the threshold of the kitchen with a construction set in his hands. It's just work, she smiled hoarsely. Go wash your hands, Dad will come soon. Jason walked into the house with the smell of spring rain. Threw the keys. The traffic jam is hellish. How are you here? He reached out to hug his wife, but felt the stiffness of her shoulders. We need to talk right now, Kelly said, her voice breaking. He took a closer look. His eyes were red, the phone was shaking in his hand. Did something happen to Oliver? Happened to all of us. Please sit down. They sat down at the dining table. In the living room, the TV hummed quietly in the background about the weather. Oliver rustled the Lego blocks upstairs. Kelly placed the printout in front of her husband. This is a DNA test. Marcus did it secretly. Jason frowned, glanced at the numbers, and his face turned stone. 99 what? Is it a joke? No. Silence swallowed the kitchen. The rhythm of the refrigerator suddenly sounded like a march. How long ago did you know that this was possible? Jason's voice became low. I've suspected it since Oliver was born, but I wasn't sure. I suspected for 10 years and remained silent. She tried to grab his hand, but he pulled his hand away as if scalded. I was afraid of losing my family, she whispered. You were the best father, the best husband. Was? He smiled bitterly. 10 years, Kelly. I taught him how to ride a bicycle and told him how to tie a tie. For me, he is my blood. You are still his father, she prayed. Genetics is not the only truth. He stood up, pushing back his chair. It's true that you lied. Every anniversary, every photo. He stepped to the window, inhaled the air, as if he was looking for support in the rhythm of the city. How many people knew besides me? Only Marcus. And then, now the laboratory, his lawyer, anyone knows it. He grabbed the test and crushed it. They left me with the role of the last idiot in the chain. The step above creaked. Oliver came down, holding the robot's diagram in his hand. He froze when he saw the faces of his parents. What's happening? Asked quietly. Jason took a step towards him, but was unable to speak. He looked away and waved his hand. Go back. Upstairs, buddy. We're talking. I heard everything, said the boy. Eyes widened, fingers trembled. Are you not my dad? Kelly screamed. He's your dad. Oliver, Jason leaned in, his voice rasping. I will always love you. Just Mom. He stopped short, words could not find form. Oliver looked from one to the other. So it's because of that uncle, the one in the cafe. Kelly nodded, tears flowing. The boy turned away as if from a click. I'm upstairs, he said dully and left without raising his eyes. Jason went into the bedroom and took out his travel bag. Where are you going? Kelly stood in the doorway, her hands clenched until they were white. I need space so that I don't break everything in a rage. This is what break is, she sobbed, but tried quietly so that her son would not hear. We can go to a mediator, to a psychotherapist. We can go to the lawyers, he answered sharply, throwing on his shirt, and decide who has what rights to the child. The bag slammed shut. He walked to the door and stopped. Do you know what hurts the most? Even now, you're not sure you told me everything. I won't know where the lie ends. He opened the front door, and the light flickered in the front door. Jason, she whispered hoarsely, I really love you. Love without honesty is an advertisement for an empty apartment, he said and left. The door slammed, and the landing swallowed up footsteps. Kelly stood with her arms wrapped around her shoulders. The silence grew denser. One question buzzed inside. What now? She went up to the second floor. Oliver sat on the floor, holding the skeletal robot in one hand and drawing random lines on the tablet with the other. I'm sorry I heard that way, she began. This is true. His voice sounded older. Is that man my real dad? Real is a difficult word. Biologically, yes. But dad is the one who was with you throughout your childhood. Why did you lie? He raised his amber eyes. There were no tears in them, only a long crack of mistrust. I wanted to protect the three of us. I was wrong. Oliver moved his finger across the screen thoughtfully. You know, in science, if you hide the original data, the experiment is invalid. Kelly sat down next to him and touched his shoulder. I'm ready to give you all the data I have. And I'm ready to answer any questions, but not right away. Go slow. And Dad, will he come back? I hope. It all depends on whether we can tell the truth. The voice trembled. The boy turned and pressed his forehead to her shoulder. but there was no hug, as if he was checking whether he could trust again. Kelly stroked his hair, feeling that his heart was beating in emptiness. His husband was gone, the past had broken through the floodgates, their world was shattered to pieces. Downstairs, meanwhile, the phone vibrated again, a message from Marcus. Gave you a chance. I'm waiting for an answer until tomorrow. He must recognize me. She closed her eyes. The air seemed heavy. A double weight fell on the shoulders, one of the men who had left and the other who now demanded to enter. Oliver listened to the vibration. Is this him? Yes. Will you answer? Tomorrow, she whispered. Now the main thing is you. He nodded as if giving permission. For the first time in many years, Kelly felt how fragile the line between an adult and a child is. Today, he heard the walls crumbling and is already thinking about how to recalculate the foundation. Can I be alone? Asked Oliver. Certainly. I'll be downstairs. But I'm nearby. She went out, closed the door, leaned against the wall, and slowly descended to the floor. The apartment was dark, only neon light swirled from the street. There was a phone on my lap. The test, a crumpled sheet stuck out of my pocket, reminding me that everything could no longer be saved. Kelly raised her head to the ceiling and for the first time did not cry. Tears seemed like a luxury he could no longer afford. She simply breathed and listened to the empty echo of the apartment, where recently the laughter of the family could be heard, and now only the quiet rustling of the robot in the hands of the boy behind the wall. Thus ended a day in which the truth was finally spoken, but the price for it had not yet even been set. Tomorrow would come the second blow, the choice between two fathers, and Kelly didn't know if she had enough strength for another round. But now the main thing is little Oliver, who heard everything and will never again believe that the world rests only on silence. Marcus stood at the edge of the Riverside Park playground, holding 2 glasses of hot cider and barely smelling the cinnamon. The wind from the Hudson knocked out the aroma. On a bench, about 20 meters away, Kelly was trying to read something on her phone. In fact, every nerve in her was aimed at the boy rolling along the concrete path. Oliver bounced on his skateboard masterfully, as if he weighed nothing, and only rare glances towards adults betrayed hidden wariness. He won't fit, Marcus said in a whisper, noticing that Kelly was glancing sideways at her watch. You expect trust in 2 meetings, she answered quietly. This is not a deal. Marcus took a sip of cider, burned his tongue, and was almost glad. The pain returned to its sharpness. Let me do something. Math tutor, tour to Space Center Houston, midsummer courses. Start with a normal conversation, Kelly snapped. About school, about what he lives with. She got up and went to her son, who was just sitting down on the bench to adjust the wheel mount. Marcus follows her. Oliver, Kelly began, trying to keep her voice soft. Marcus wanted to ask how your robotic arm project is going. The boy glanced over the man's face, lingered on the amber ring in the iris, the reflection of his own eye, and answered briefly. Fine. Normal. With what accuracy? Marcus smiled cautiously. I had a prototype of a servo drive in my archive. Do you want me to throw in a drawing? The servo has already been optimized. Oliver snapped and clicked the screw. The feedback controller is more important to me. Marcus nodded. The boy's tone itself did not hurt him, but clearly showed the wall. Then maybe I'll send you a couple of articles on tactile sensors. We have an IEE library. Oliver answered dryly and rolled his skateboard without looking back. Kelly sighed. He's not ready. It seems to him that you came late and with rules. Marcus squeezed the glass until the lid cracked. In the evening, when they returned home, 3 people gathered in the hallway. Jason stood at the cabinet with a travel bag and a wet jacket. His hair is matted and there are bruises under his eyes. Apparently, he didn't sleep much. Hello, he said quietly, addressing his son first. Oliver froze. He glanced at his mother, then at Marcus, who froze in the doorway of the living room as if on the front line. Dad, are you back? He's back. Jason put his bag aside. To you. There was silence for a second, like an empty beat before an orchestra strikes. Marcus took a step. Am I interfering? Kelly remained silent. In this silence, there was, "Yes, you're in the way. No, don't go. And I don't know what's right anymore." Jason looked at him calmly, almost without anger, just tiredness. "Oliver, will you come upstairs? I need to talk to my mom and Marcus." "I'll stay," the boy said confidently. "It's about me." Nobody had anything to object to. They walked into the kitchen, a small square where years ago pasta and laughter had flown across the walls. Now it smelled of dampness and the sky before the storm. Jason started first. "I read the report. I spoke with a lawyer. From the point of view of the law, everything is simple. He is the biological father, I am the legal father. But where father for real is not a paragraph." Marcus clenched his fingers. "I'm not going to ruin his life. I want to have the right to participate." "Participate?" Jason shook his head. "Yesterday, you sent a lawyer notice about a possible custody trial. This is insurance in case my door is blocked." Kelly chimed in. "Enough. You two fight for the title, forgetting that the judge will not decide." She turned to her son. "Olia, I protected you from this choice for a long time, but it's no longer possible. Here are two men who love you in different ways. I won't tell you which is correct. I will say that honesty is the only thing that will save us." The boy took off his glasses and wiped the fogged lenses. "I thought choice was an easy formula. In fact, it's like a system of equations with a parameter that is constantly changing." He looked at Jason. "You taught me to climb rocks, built a house with me. You are my dad." Turned to Marcus. "And you are my DNA. Genetics is a fact, but the feeling will not download after one PDF." Marcus inhaled as if he wanted to say something, but fell silent, nodding. This was fairer than any sentence. "I want time," Oliver concluded. "I have a science fair in a month. If you both care, come and see what I did. The one who understands my project and me will be the father." Kelly's eyes filled with tears. She saw herself in her son, the legacy of that day when she chose not to know. Only Oliver walked a different path. A month flew by in preparation. Oliver was turning the garage into a workshop. Microcircuits were lying around instead of shoes, and the soldering iron only dozed at night. Jason, who moved into the guest room, helped etch circuit boards without interfering with the family nervous matrix. Marcus sent a box of sensors, but did not come to the house. Kelly oversaw the schedule, trying to make sure no one crossed paths by accident. Every evening was like the control room of a large airport, too many flights on overlapping courses. Sometimes Oliver would stop and watch the two men working on opposite sides of the workbench, and the question, "Who am I?" would appear in his eyes, but he would hide it under a layer of tasks, measure torque, simulate the bend of a finger. The day of the science fair arrived warm, smelling of baked bagels from the school cafeteria. The assembly hall was filled with stands, solar panels made from bottle caps, a model of a Martian settlement, endless volcanoes made from soda and vinegar. Oliver's project, second-generation tactile hand, a low-cost prosthesis for teens, shone among them all. Marcus came in a gray suit without a tie, stayed a little to the side so as not to create unnecessary pressure. Jason supervised the queue of spectators and helped connect the power. They exchanged nods as the world held on to a fragile truce. Oliver explained how it works. "Here are pressure sensors from the game console, cost reduced by 80%. And here is a controller on an ARM chip. The pulse delay is less than 5 milliseconds. The judge, a professor at New York University, nodded with obvious interest. Questions flew. "How did you deal with vibration?" "Why not Raspberry?" the boy answered quickly. "Who helped with the board architecture?" asked the professor. "This man," Oliver pointed at Jason. "He is not an electronics engineer, but he taught me the principle, simplify if you want reliability." "Who suggested the sensors from Play Console?" The professor did not let up. "This one," Oliver nodded at Marcus. He said, "The main thing is to find a solution where no one is looking." The judge smiled. "Apparently, you have a rich support team." Oliver looked at both men and for the first time felt something fall into place in his chest. not geometrically, but as if an invisible magnetic field had coincided. An hour later, when the audience had left for lunch, he called them to the empty auditorium. Kelly stood nearby, chewing on every heartbeat. Oliver took an envelope from his backpack. "This is the form of a diploma. Father's name required." Silence hung like a chandelier without light. "I've thought it over," he continued. "Biology is a fact, and it will be in the medical records. But in school, in projects, in my official history, the name should mean the one who is nearby." He handed the pen to Jason. "Dad, sign here. Father." Jason trembled, his shoulders rose, his eyes filled with moisture, which he immediately hid in a smile. He placed the painting firmly, but with a slightly trembling hand. Marcus looked at the stage, as if at an X-ray of his own soul, with a strange mixture of pain and pride. "I'm not excluding you." Oliver turned to him. "It's just a long way. If you want to go through it, we'll start small. Together we'll set up the AI for the third version of the hand." Marcus nodded, swallowing something sharp that was stuck in his throat. "Thanks for the chance." Kelly exhaled with relief, her breath trembled like silk in a draft. 2 more years passed. The area near Lincoln Center was awash in the colors of prom dresses. Oliver graduated with honors in the STEM program and walked to the stage to endless applause. On the form in the column Parent Guardian, it shone, Jason Layden. In the hall, Marcus stood near the far column, applauding first and louder than many. Jason is in the second row with Kelly, his voice is out of control. As Oliver raised the letter above his head, their gazes met, pride accepted without further ado. After the ceremony, streams of graduates dispersed into the park. 3 adult figures stopped at a distance of a couple of meters like points of an unequal triangle. Oliver walked into the center of this improvised field. A silk-class scarf with the school crest hung around his neck, and in his hands was a prototype of that same hand, now printed on an industrial printer. He approached Jason first and hugged him tightly. "We have proven genetics is needed not to fall in love, but to understand where the wind is coming from. But the ship is not guided by the wind, but by the captain," he said. Then he turned to Marcus and extended his prosthetic hand. "I will always be grateful for my amber hue and perseverance in finding non-standard solutions. This is also a part of me." Marcus touched the plastic fingers as if giving a blessing. Kelly watched how her boy, tall and confident, knew how to hold both vectors, the past and the future, not tearing them apart, but connecting them. The sun was setting towards the Hudson, and the water gave off a breath of freshness. People dispersed, the graduates' laughter melted away, and when the trio stood for another moment, each in his own silence, Oliver suddenly realized that all the pain behind him had turned into a map. It had not been erased, but showed the way. He turned to the river, took a breath, and mentally summed up the years. The truth cannot be erased, but you can live with it. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think, click to the next one.